All right, let's see. Welcome back to Theme Park Wizard. I'm with Vash Sky, the Dr. Dre, to talk about a couple of rap articles. Rap, like wrapping paper. And we're talking about some executives getting taking some early retirement. And also in the article, a Universal Hollywood park ride Rejuvenation is mentioned in a first phase of it. On Fuego Fire, hello there. You should make a video. All you guys do is take a cell phone like this and then start saying stuff. That's what I did. And what's up, OG55?
Hello there, OG. What's going on?
You gotta pop on in here after your din din. And we have a couple of shared things here. Let's see. Boop, boop, boop. 4 people. Hello. So, look at this. Dre, break it down. What do we got here?
Okay, so the big topic of the day is going to be NBC Universal putting out some pretty big compensation packages for executives who have been working at the company for more than 10 years or over the age of 57. Now, interestingly enough, obviously, the news recently was reported that that this was happening not only amongst NBC Universal executives for the studio side, but also for Universal's creative side. But I wanted to go ahead and highlight this because the original story of this happening actually came out as recently or as late as October 20th, 2022. Very, very interesting. Now, it's kind of funny because I know I know he's laughing right now because we were going to talk about this. We were going to feature this on one of our live shows or something else, and we just never actually got around to it until, oh, well, now it's very, very relevant to actually talk about. But you can see right here, the NBC Universal is considering cutting primetime programming in the 10 p.m. hour, but they're also mulling over early retirement offers for veteran staffers age 57 and older. And it looks like that has actually come to pass. Interestingly enough, Screenscape actually had the breaking news on this originally. This was back in November 23rd of 2022. Said this. Exactly. Now, there might have been, I don't know about you, Ethan, but there might have been an executive shakeup happening over at the Mouse House at around this time that might have just sucked all the air out of the room. I think that might have happened, but I'm sure people can guess what that was. Anyway, Screenscape provides us the update here. While I haven't seen any official news reports as of this yet, Screenscape sources are telling me that select high officials at Universal are departing the company as some kind of quasi-layoff taking place. Keep in mind that this isn't an actual official layoff, but instead the corporate offices is apparently offering to buy out the contracts of high-paid staff members who are around age 55 or older and have been with the company for 10 plus years. In exchange for leaving their positions, they are being offered a golden parachute offer of severance pay and other benefits as compensation. I'm told that several high-profile names have agreed to take the deals, including a few staples from the halls of Universal Creative, despite being in the middle of the build-out of their new Epic Universe theme park. Now, you may be asking, why is this happening just after Comcast announced that the Universal parks had generated record profits levels over this past year? But I'm told that the answer is a timing thing, as this is in reaction to early warning signs of a possible recession, on top of the fact that Universal is unlikely to repeat the same level of record profits next year. So by offering some early retirement before the end of this year, they can write off these benefits now and go into next year's financial reports with lower operating costs that will help offset any reductions in earnings next year. For now, stay tuned. And that's basically what the Hollywood Reporter was originally reporting on, that there was incoming recessionary difficulties surrounding the economy, and that this was an effort to offset increased operating costs and reduced viewership and so forth. Also, too, you have to remember NBC Universal, just like any other studio, that has a linear network presence. Obviously, they have Peacock, which is ad driven and so forth. They require ad revenue to actually function and operate. And
Mm.
when you have a recession coming in, well, that's less corporate investment that you have from companies and corporations looking to advertise on your platforms, right? So this is going to hurt, and it looks like NBC Universal is actually taking some steps in order to make way for that recession that we've been kind of talking about in OG55 some time as it relates to Disney,
Mm.
but not yet. We've not yet talked about it as it relates to NBC Universal. And then, of course, The Wrap has confirmed this. They might just be reading Screamscape. We don't know, but it's a big publication here. It looks like they've confirmed it here. Several high-ranking executives at Universal Creative Division, responsible for ride shows and attractions at Universal Parks Worldwide, are heading for the exit just a few years before the launch of their new theme park, Epic Universe. The Wrapped has learned exclusively, and we'll go over some of the names here. But before we get to that, Wizard, I want to go ahead and bring you into this conversation right here. What do you think about all this? Some people are optimistic, obviously, as anything Universal does. Some people, they're a little bit skeptical, and I think I will include myself in that. But where are you starting from, Wizard, and what do you have to say?
See, since it was planned months ago, I still think it's all right. I don't think it's like a Chicken Little, the sky is falling thing. I think it's, oh, hey, there's a recession coming. Try to offload some people, you know. So laying them off, let's offer some nice severance packages, because these are great people. Let's send them off the some nice money there. Oh, uh, now I don't know how with the studio stuff. I have no idea. I don't. But I have Peacock, well, the free version, but I don't particularly watch it, so I feel like that's not successful. So with that stuff, might be trouble down there, but or just, well, if Peacock, I felt it was always trouble. But no, I took a real issue with Mice Chat here. I don't know if you have that article up. The Mice Chat. They specifically said something about Epic Universe getting less epic when that, just like a couple other things they said about Universal and two articles, almost made zero sense when you look at it. And I didn't like that in my chat, so you can go suck it. But yeah, I think recession's coming, so they're gonna. That was a smart thing. Try to offload some people, and they say they can use it as a tax write-off or something. So that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like every company, Disney, Universal, we'll see, Six Flags. That's one that I don't know if they can survive that one. But every company, Target, if the recession does come, which it seems like it is, then they're all gonna have to suffer for a little bit. But in the last earnings report, the parks division was the one, like Disney, making all the money.
Yeah.
So that's why I think that part will be okay, even with the creatives leaving. There's new ones to replace. I still think the parks stuff will be just fine, even if the studio stuff and the cable stuff, especially the cable stuff, at least for Comcast, may not be on shaky ground. But the park stuff for both Disney and Universal are the ones that are like making, the only ones making money. I think will be just fine. I certainly don't think, well, I know Epic Universe is getting less epic, Mice Chat, because you can see it in the photos.
It's optimistic. That's an optimistic take on it. I have a different take, and I think before we get to the My Shed thing, which I do feel is important, I think we should go back and just kind of reassess who is actually taking these retirement offerings and going off into the sunset. You have Terry Koo. You have what is it? Who's been with the company for forever? a long, long time. The charismatic and forthright senior vice president and chief creative officer of Universal Creative, who oversaw the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, among other Disney challenging expansions. Mike Hightower, president of Universal Creative, and Mike Harrington, vice president of engineering and safety at Universal Studios Florida, are among the executives who have quietly opted to take voluntary early retirement packages. Maished actually goes further and says that almost all of Disney's, I'm sorry, Universal's SVP at Universal Creative have actually left the division. Here's the thing, some of these guys have been here for decades. They've been here for a long, long time, and there's been a culture that has been carefully crafted and carefully built in order to provide us for the attractions that we so love and talk about regularly on channels like this, Wizard, and on my home channel, OG55. However, with that culture, it's a lot more fragile than people think. And I'll give people an example. Let's say you have a group, right? And it's about 6 people. Right? And let's say on an annual basis, you have one of those 6 switched out regularly, right? And, it just goes down the line. Well, if you're doing it one person and it's taking a year to do so, that's enough time for the new person to be integrated amongst that group, right? And to kind of pick up those cultural values that the group actually has, the traditions, the way they talk to each other, the communication habits, and so forth, right? All of that is preserved. Well, what if you take that group of 6 and now you have 4 that leave? Well, that group dynamic there with that 4 incoming is completely shifted. I mean, that is a completely different group at that point, with its own values, with its own communication patterns and habits, with its own philosophy, its own rules and so forth, right? Their own traditions. And so the thing that gives me pause here, and NBC Universal, they have the line here where they talk about shepherding new people within the ranks. Let me see here. They say, let's see. Say it right here. Right. Obviously, Imagineering has also suffered some tumult, including mass firings and retirements and a forced exodus to Lake Nona. We know about that. And while Universal Creative wasn't heavily built upon so-called, quote, institutional knowledge like Imagineering, and have always built new teams around projects, it is disconcerting to fans to see so many respected executives who generally helped put Universal Creative on the map taking early retirement options. And they say there was a quote in here
But the strong
I can't find it right.
foundation or
Yeah,
something? Yeah.
it was basically like they have a nurturing program in which they can bring up executives from lower ranks and put them in key positions so there won't be any philosophical changes and so forth with the group dynamic. And it's like, you can say that, but does it actually what does it happen in reality? Does it actually occur? Yeah. That's a different thing here, and I think that's something that we should be looking on.
Now, I have a counter argument, a semi counter argument.
Sure.
All right. So, yes, some of those people. Oh, yes, they give us great things, obviously, like Harry Potter and Velocicoaster and Nintendo. Well, I guess one could argue with the Harry Potter and Nintendo. I know J.K. Rowling and Nintendo are very also on top of that, so they have to keep it up to a standard. But it's those same people. Oh my gosh, I can't speak. Those same people also were there when things like Fast and Furious Supercharged were built, and other duds.
Sure.
And still can't speak. And things like Secret Life of Pets, good attraction, but one of those people decided they should have terrible restraints on it. So I feel like they all make good and bad things. I feel like these new people, maybe they definitely can learn from the older people's mistakes, and they're younger. right? They're probably more social media friendly. They probably know what we're talking. The fans, at least online, are talking about because they're probably on social media more, so they know probably. I feel like they know more. What are they more in tune with what the people are saying on online or on on in the park? Like Jim Scholl, he's old man. He uses Twitter a lot, but
Sure.
a lot of those other guys, I'm sure they do know and they put out some great stuff. But I feel like these new people, they learned. They're like I'm sure they shadowed or worked with these other guys, like G Prodigy, right?
Mm.
G Prodigy, he's a young guy. He's working on Epic Universe now, and he worked on Velocicoaster. And now here's with the nice little team people. I feel like these new people, they know what the fans of today want, and like a screen-based attraction, they know we don't like screen-based attractions, so I feel like they're less likely to put out one. So you said changing culture, so maybe the changing culture is a positive changing culture for more things, like Harry Potter, even greater, and nothing like Fast and Furious Supercharged will ever come up again, or even with the Ministry of Magic, right? They're just using an upgraded scoop vehicle, right? Maybe
Yeah.
these people are like, let's try something new, like innovative new rides. I don't know. I just feel like maybe a culture change or new thoughts will be a positive instead of maybe a negative. I don't know.
Well, Mike Harrington. Yeah. Let's go ahead and give a shout out to Orange Coat
Oh,
55,
gee.
my brother in arms over there. He's enjoying time with the family right now. We applaud that absolutely for sure. Curious if MiceChat spoke to uni creatives at these events directly or hearing it from other sources. Yeah, we will get into that. OG. Let me go ahead and I'm
By the way,
pivoting into that.
OG, you
I
guys,
can I can assure you, OG, we're getting there. But this Mike Harrington, this vice president of engineering and safety, yeah, I agree. He can go probably. Look, I don't like to see anybody lose their jobs. He's going to be given a golden parachute, so it's not too bad. However, look, when you're putting these safety restraints that it's it feels like what is it, you're in a latex suit almost at something like what is it, Yoshi or what is it, Secret Life of Pets. We can calm down that a little bit for sure. So I don't necessarily that's one I can take. But some of these others, I mean, these are notable guys. The rap here, this is the section I was trying to find. Individuals with knowledge of the situation, however, stressed to us that Universal Creative is known for its strong talent development and succession training, and that there are thoughtful transitions in place. I mean, hopefully, OG kind of broke that down on his channel, saying that that's kind of a bunch of spin, and I do kind of say that's fairly accurate in my opinion, but who knows though. I mean, there might be. It's just,
do you think
I'm
they'll
telling you,
take
when you
some of them will take maybe like the Iger approach, how not working with it, but they're good friends with the people, maybe advise them on something if they have a
sure,
question.
yeah,
That's
and
like
you might have consultant roles, right? That kind of shepherd from the outside in. That's possible too. I'm not saying that it's not. It's just in my experience, that doesn't necessarily happen the way that you may write it out on paper. In reality, things are much different. Now, to your point, Wizard, yes, we could get a kind of development of new talent that comes in and kind of understands what the fan wants, understand kind of what works and what doesn't work, and looks at it with a different approach than maybe previous leadership did, without question. But to me, when you see NBC Universal making cuts the way they are, making programming changes, setting themselves up to absorb the impact of recessionary economic conditions, to me, it seems like there's going to be a pulling back of not just leadership, but also maybe on projects. And I think that's why MiceChat brought this up here. I'm not saying that they're correct, but I am saying I think that's kind of where this is coming from. So, to your point, Wizard, about going forward with projects that aren't screen based and so forth, you could have that where it's like, hey, we understand what the guests wants. We're going to pivot away from some of the things that we did before and pivot into things that we know to work amongst us, a demographic that's more in tune with the audience. Fair, right? But you could also have it where Universal Creative is given less money to do the things that they were doing before, and you have people in leadership positions now that want to make a name for themselves and want to impress bosses and so forth. We actually saw this, interestingly enough, with when Paul Presser actually came in and some of the changes that he implemented to the senior ranks of Imagineering and so forth, and for certain projects. There were people who took on the challenge and developed projects with kind of a budget conscious mindset and so forth, and to impress senior leadership even above them, gave us products that let's say had to be retooled a decade or so down the line. So it could work to what you're saying, Wizard, but I'm not quite sure. And I think this is where this section of Mice Chat's actually coming from right here. They write this: Universal's creative staff have been grumbling at industry events recently that their mega theme park project in Orlando, Epic Universe, is getting less and less epic by the day. What the project was promised to be and what it is shaping up to be may not live up to the grandiose name.
Now, see what now. This is I guess one of those benefits at Universal where they don't like share too much information at all.
Correct.
But
Yeah.
so far, that picture is what I was promised, right? That's all. I don't know. We're none of us on the inside unless someone knows something. Please let me know. So far, all I know is this is what I'm promised. I don't. Besides Nintendo World, we don't even truly. I mean, we obviously can tell, but nothing's confirmed of what's coming. What other themes of other lands are, because they didn't say it, right? We can see it, but so what I can see what's confirmed. I mean, based on this concept art is what's to me is confirmed, and based on Bioreconstruct's amazing aerial shots. Go follow that guy, people. If you don't, uh, that's what's being built. Besides that theater that turned into a coaster and that one restaurant that's super tiny that got cut. I see the foundations for almost every single one of the things on now, unless they mean something like the monsters area is supposed to have a windmill that lights up on fire. Maybe it doesn't light up on fire, and maybe it's not a scare zone. If they're saying cuts like that, okay, I get it. That's fine. But if they're meaning cuts like a ride or like a building, I see every single foundation and bioreconstructs pictures. So I don't know what they're talking about. But if they're talking about like shows, maybe live shows that like stuff after the parks open, maybe a fireworks show, okay, I'll give them that. But if we're talking about physical things, then I don't give them that because it's hard to believe something when you can see it, the opposite
Yeah.
thing happening. You know.
It is. It is. We know there have been kind of final hour changes with the development of Epic Universe. Even as stuff is being put into the ground, things are changing.
Mm-hmm.
I do wonder to what extent Mice Chat is suggesting
And
that
that's
it's
another
becoming
thing.
less epic, if at all.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's not like with you or anybody. It's that they're so vague. I mean, that if you look at that, it's like so like I could have said that. I could have said,
Mm.
"Well, guess what? I was at IAPA, even though I wasn't." And then I heard some industry creatives say, "Epic Universe is getting less grandiose." Like they don't even like. I get it if they. I don't know. I guess did these people sign NDAs when they leave? Like
Um,
the severance package, the early. Let's say if people are
I
leaving with the
I'm
early.
I'm guessing they have. I'm guessing they have. I'm guessing they
I
haven't got
guess they
into.
can't say much, but I feel like I don't know. I feel like you can like give some sort of hint. I don't like. I feel like my Shaq could have said. I feel like like when they said what was promised to be, like could be like a show was promised or a parade was promised maybe,
Sure.
and it got cut. Like, but I feel like it's so vague. Like, how are you supposed to like even figure out what they're saying? You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's really kind of difficult to say. It could be that, like you said, entertainment
Yeah.
packages were cut.
And
Could be
then
that whole lands were cut. Well, we know that quite not to be the case. It could be that they're shifting the opening of
mhm.
this entire theme park to phases, right? Where it's like, okay, in order to spread costs out, we've seen that with Disney recently, where it's like they'll spread construction costs out to each
Ron.
quarter. Yeah, Tron, right? That's probably the most notable example. Um, and
Go
it could be
follow the
this, right?
OG people.
It
Sorry,
could be
go
that they're.
subscribe
Oh
to
no,
OG.
you're fine. You're fine. OG,
Yeah,
he
and
definitely
casual.
demands.
Still subscribe to casual too. Both of them.
Absolutely,
Especially for the
absolutely.
like daily live streams from this guy. I don't know how he does it, but keep it up, man. Keep it up.
Hey, all the applause that you can possibly give, right there to the both of them, and to the entire Wizard family too for letting us on. This is quite nice. So, applauds to all of you for sure. But look, I mean, it could be where, hey, they're stretching out, like I said, construction timelines and maybe putting things into phases, right? And phase one is going to be ready for opening day, but maybe not phase two, which has maybe some of these other lands connected to it. There's a lot of possibilities here. Like you said, I think Mike Chet is pretty vague on this, and it's. I do think though. I think it would be. I think it would be naive to believe that some of the recessionary impacts that we're seeing, some of the labor shortages that we're seeing, the supply chain issues that we're seeing, aren't going to impact this in some way. Now, Epic Universe has been pretty good about taking on the storm, sometimes literally, of some of the changes surrounding it, right? But I think it's got to be naive to presume that this would have no effect, that what we were promised back in 2019, 2018, right, when this project was being developed, is 100% what we're going to get on the back end now, even with some of these bigger impacts to both the economy and to the supply chain. What do you think about that, Wizard?
Yeah, again, I'm sure because I mean, even before this concept art was released, you know, I'm sure there could have been those two gaps could have been filled, could have been totally different IPs. Who knows? Um, yeah. So definitely get a change, and then yeah, the supply chain issues certainly, and again, even if they open something in phases, though, right? Let's say they have to open phases because of supply chain issues. To me, I mean, I guess then the wording of my chat's paragraph would be like off or confused because like it's not we'd still get everything, just some of it sometime here and then later on this, but it's like the same thing, just not at the same time. So I
Hmm.
still feel like Mice Chat's thing would not be totally factually correct. So let's say you can't get the parts for the coast or the Monsters Land. So everything opens in September 25 and Monsters opens in or Summer 25 and Monsters opens in 2026. But you still get the same Monsters Land that you see being built now. You still get everything that's promised, so to say, just not at the same time because of
Yeah.
external issues, which would still make my chat's paragraph false. I mean, to me it would, or just wildly misleading and confusing. You
It,
know,
possibly. I think that's possible. Sapphire Jones, I know you came in late, but you're saying you're
oh, I know,
confused.
poor Sapphire.
Please let us know what is confusing so we can kind of break it down for
Yes,
you.
that's no.
And that way we can not only just catch up you, but we can catch up some of our audience too that's tuning in. Look, the reason why these things are kind of interwoven the way they are between these senior executives at Universal Creative leaving and Epic Universe is because, well, Epic Universe is only 2 years away. Usually what happens is you ramp up and up and up for a project of this scale up until the point it opens, then you ramp down, right? It's very weird how you have these kind of senior executives leaving or taking these packages right before Epic Universe is poised to actually open. Now, it could be, it's a possibility, it could be that part of their golden parachute packages specifically are tied to Epic Universe in that they stay on just to see this project open. We don't really actually have details on that. But what it is sounding like, being put up by Screenscape and the wrap and so forth, is that these people are leaving imminently, well before Epic Universe actually opens. And you would think that Universal
year.
That's kind of what the implication what is being
that's
implied.
what I thought. At least I thought like, oh, they finish off this year, and then it sounds like they'll be, out of
It,
there. Now,
it sounds like it's right.
If let's say a recession was popping up, right?
Sure.
Would that still? I guess would that still be possible? Like, do still do that? Like, let's say there's a major, or I don't know, major, but a recession coming. Do they still be able to ramp up like that and then dissolve, or because
So
like
that's
if
what.
a recession wasn't coming, do you think these people will be leaving now? I guess is what I'm saying.
Um.
Or do you think the universe would offer this right now if there wasn't any, yeah, potential warning signs of any recession or anything?
No. No. This seems to be an effort by NBC Universal, this division of Comcast. This seems to be a division-wide thing that they're undertaking right now. And that being said, it's being done because of kind of macroeconomic conditions. I don't think that happens if a recession isn't coming. I think they just stay the course. They might make some changes, as all businesses do every single year, but to kind of offer these golden parachutes to everybody, like they're doing right now. I mean, this is a pretty big move by NBC Universal. You would have thought that they would have consolidated it to just the studio side and left NBC Universal, at least the executives tied to Epic Universe. They would have maybe shielded them from that simply to get this park open and on time. The fact that even people that are connected to Epic Universe are leaving, that's at issue. And what Wizard was talking about with these recessionary things right here, I'll read you to this again from Screenscape. It says, I'm told that several high-profile names have agreed to take these retirement packages, including a few staples from the halls of Universal Creative, despite being in the middle of the build-out of the new Epic Universe theme park. Now, you may be asking why this is happening just after Comcast announced that the Universal parks had generated record profits over this past year. I'm told that the answer is a timing thing, as this is in reaction to early warning signs of a possible recession, on top of the fact that Universal is unlikely to repeat the same level of record profits next year. So by offering some early retirement before the end of this year, they can write off those benefits now and go into next year's financial reports with lower operating costs that will help offset any reductions in earnings next year. He's saying right here that their exit is imminent in order to offset the balance sheet when it comes to the labor costs from this. From these executive positions. So that tells me they're leaving. Now, I just saw our amazing Orange Go 55, who's in the chat, by the way. Thank you. His video that he put out on this, and he was suggesting that they're not just taking these golden parachutes and riding off into the sunset, but they're actually jumping ship. That maybe between what Maished is saying and this event here with these senior executives, that maybe Epic Universe isn't shaping up to be the all amazing park that a lot of fans have put in their minds that it will actually be. That maybe they're So go ahead, Wizard. What do you have to say about that?
Two questions. One, if they didn't take the golden parachutes, will they just be laid off and then get nothing?
Yeah, that's
Because in
So
that case,
that's typical,
I would take the golden parachute because
right?
I want nothing,
So
Even if I
that's
see if a new park is there,
that's
I
kind
know
of,
where I live.
I will say, Wizard, that was kind of where my head was at. Usually, if you don't take what is being offered here, you might face imminent layoffs afterwards, where a golden parachute isn't actually available for you. So it's one of those things where it's like, well, I'll take the money now instead of everything being up in the air afterwards, right? That's a possibility. I think some of these guys were. I think they were more inclined to take these retirement offers at a time when the economy is kind of shaky, rather than attempt to wait it out and kind of see what happens, especially if they're 57 years or older. I mean, that's when you're kind of looking for, a retirement offer of some kind. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So,
they did the Iger.
yeah, yeah, we've seen this at ranks at Disney and so forth. So that's kind of where I was more inclined right there to differ from OG a little bit. But it is weird. I mean, you can't say it's not weird when they should
It's
be
weird.
ramping up in terms of
Mhm.
Universal Creative employees, and yet in their senior ranks, they're going down. This is really, really strange. The timing is just bizarre. I remember for Epcot, for example. I mean, a lot of the second gen Imagineers got their they were able to get their start working at Epcot because that project was so massive and they needed so many people. I mean, they needed people from all over the place, when it comes to WDI and the amusement industry and so forth. And so a lot of people went on to positions later on based on the experience that they gained there. But you can directly connect their roots back to that project. You know, I mean, I think a lot of people thought that something similar would happen here, and yet it's not.
Now,
What do
which
you
is
say about that, Wizard?
my second question, which I remember was watching OG's video. I think it was with you guys or George, one of those. Um, a while ago, you guys were talking about Disney's debt, right? And you guys showed a chart, and Disney had like 57 billion or something, or 41, right? But the number one person, was Comcast, like 71 or $100 billion in debt, right? So I'm
Sure.
curious, do you think maybe that's why maybe they didn't want to dip into creative, but like they had to because they're already like 100. The Comcast itself is like what, like $100 billion or something in debt. Do you think
Oh
maybe
yeah.
they had to, even though maybe they didn't want to, like they had to because like, oh my goodness, we already have so much debt and there's maybe a recession, so we have to just kind of cut everybody through all divisions, type of thing.
I I feel for the entire NBC Universal subdivision take this kind of step in removing these senior positions. There was definitely they definitely felt that there was a need to do it. There was a requirement to do it from something. I don't know if it was debt related. The debt load for Comcast is really interesting because their cash flow is really different from Disney. So I like direct comparisons between them. I don't think are necessarily appropriate because a studio makes money differently than a
Yeah.
telecommunications company. But I'll say this: that debt load's not helping anything, and it certainly it could have played a factor in some of these changes. To the extent that is the case, I'm not sure, but I think it would be like I would say it'd be naive to believe that it didn't have some impact.
Yeah, because I was curious about that because until you saw that I saw that chart, I had no idea how much debt anybody had. So I
Yeah.
was like, wow. But so thank you, OG and Vash guy, for teaching me something. This is
Hey,
why you watch the channel. You gotta subscribe so you can learn things, not just Disney, but business in general.
I agree. I agree. Speaking of things that people may not have known, that the only channels Theme Park Wizard and OG55 actually bring up at all, it seems like. A lot of people don't even talk about some of this stuff, but it's like, why aren't you talking about this? This is very important. Uh, is the wrap went into not only what was going on with these senior executive ranks. I like this right here. Last year, Coop made headlines when he admitted that he regretted building Fast and Furious Supercharged, arguably one of the worst received modern marquee attractions in a theme park. I like that. You know, it's
Very glad he admitted that though, because
right.
at least he owned up to it. He's like, wait, no, I fucked up. We fucked up.
Yes, so I appreciate the rap that they brought that up because I love that story. It's a very funny one. It's sad that we're losing that executive who brought that up because it's we rarely get somebody that speaks so candid.
Yeah, I know
So
they
that's
really admit any mistakes or say anything actually. So
right.
commendable.
But this is another thing that we wanted to talk about real fast. What makes the retirement of so many executives at Universal Creative even more befuddling is that Universal is set to open their new high-tech theme park near the Orlando Convention Center in 2025. Epic Universe, which will have lands dedicated to Nintendo properties and the classic Universal monsters, will be stuffed with groundbreaking features and a unique operating blueprint where you can pay to access individual lands, meaning that corporations or large groups can rent out those same lands without impacting the others in the park that day. The massive endeavor could be enough to unsettle Disney's Florida supremacy. Want to go ahead and talk about that, Wizard, because that a lot of this is popping up a lot more, and I think a lot of people kind of they have a perception in their minds it's not going to quite align to the reality of the situation when it opens.
Two things, really quickly. They have one of them. The rap just confirmed Universal Monsters. Wow. And then two, probably probably not happening, but curious only because what we were talking about, with the opening lands, maybe some open, maybe some. The rap only mentioned Nintendo and Monsters, even though no one mentioned Monsters Land, right? But if they did do the phase thing, wonder if Nintendo and Monsters open first, because those are the ones that are mentioned, and Dragon and Potter open next in phase 2 or whatever. Curious only because they just mentioned that those two out before.
It's interesting, yeah.
But yeah. So this one was wait, we're talking about the pay per land thing or just
the pay per land thing.
Okay, because I know there's Disney Killer. Okay, real quickly. So Sapphire, Universal Creative offered retirement, or Embassy Universal offered some retirement package, and they encouraged their higher level executives to take some nice golden parachutes money and retire at presumably the end of the year, since there's only 2 weeks left.
Yeah.
End of the year, so they can save some money because their future outlooks for next year's first quarter, January through March, is not looking as good as this first quarter, because there's a recession coming with inflation raising. I think the Fed just raised the rates again today. So
they did. They moved it up
like half
50 base percentage points, half a percent.
Yeah. Let's see. Are we actually getting a supercharge? Well, you have supercharged. I'm confused. Oh, Florida has it. We have it. So I'm confused. But yes, I guess yes, we are getting a supercharged. Yeah. But yeah, so that's basically what's happening. That's what we're talking about, and then we're talking about Epic Universe now.
Yeah, and Sapphire Jones. We're still getting Epic Universe. That's still coming forward. Jeff Shell actually gave I guess he gave some speech at some conference or another for investors, and he assured that Epic Universe is still on track. We're still getting it by 2025, and everything's looking pretty good. He even downplayed any potential supply side issues and so forth. So, from what we understand, we're still getting Epic Universe as was originally pitched to us all the way back in, I think it was like, what, 2019, 2018, 2017, something like that?
2019, 18.
Something like that, right? Yeah. So it's coming, but we're just kind of speculating on, what MyShed's been saying, that it's less epic or whatever, and how this senior management shakeup over there at Universal Creative kind of is interwoven with this. So that's kind of what we were breaking down there. When it comes to this pay per land thing, Okay, there's been some chatter out there. I just want to go ahead and
Mhm.
clarify some things. Okay, first off, I remember back there was a time when Rip Ride Rocket was built the way it was and configured the way it was
Oh yeah, the
because
exit from City Walk, right?
right, you could
Yeah,
access it from City Walk when the park was actually closed, right?
yeah.
Well, later it was like we're not going to do that because operations just didn't pan out the way they originally envisioned it, and they put the kibosh on that really early on, as it was nearing the end of that project. Okay, so that's one thing, and I bring that point up because there is what ops wants to do and what they actually can do, right? So
Mhm.
that's a big, that's a big discrepancy there, that we see happen constantly in the amusement enterprise. I mean, that kind of stuff where it's like, hey, we'd like to have it work this way, and then when it opens, oh crap, we have to, go back and retool or whatever, or change things or take away things or whatever. That happens all the time. Okay, so that I want to start out there. When it comes to this pay per land thing, a lot of people think that when you go up to the entrance gates of Epic Universe when it opens in 2025, and you look at the menu board there, and it you have not only your ticket offers and your annual passport or annual pass holder options, but you're going to have this kind of what is it? Let's say a cheesecake factory type menu where you have all your options. Oh, you want to go to Nintendo and Monsters, or do you want to go to Monsters and Harry Potter? Or do you want to get this kind of a la carte thing for lands? I can just tell you right now that's not going to happen. Okay, that they're not going to muck up the theme park operation like Disney has and some of these others have with the opening of Epic Universe. I can assure you, not going to happen. What they mean by pay per land, and the clue is actually embedded in the wrap article here, meaning corporations or large groups can rent out those same lands without impacting others. The beauty of Epic Universe's construction is that the lands can be segmented off
Mhm.
for things like corporate events, for things like conferences and conventions and so forth, right?
Or even
That
grad nights.
grad nights, Orange Grove 55 actually, his big thing is, hey, look, you could do this for Halloween Horror Nights, where you could
Mhm.
segment off lands and so forth, and not actually impact the overall operations in the park. Uh, to the degree you would otherwise have to for the existing parks, Islands of Adventure and Universal Studios Florida. Okay, that's kind of where they're going there. Okay, uh, the big what is it trend in the themed entertainment community right now in this industry is to sell the park multiple times per day. Right, so you have your day guests that go in there for a number of hours, and then you've sold it again for big events like Grad Night or corporate events. When Intel comes walking into town, right? You can grant them a portion of the park or the entire park and so forth. Disney's actually
Oh,
been doing this for Galaxy's Edge a lot at Disneyland,
so
more than
that's
people
my
would think.
question.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would say yeah. Have you? Does Disney do this a lot? Because I'm telling you, five, including today, five of the last six times I've been to Universal Hollywood again, including
yeah,
today. You see
yeah.
signs and check-in tables. Activision today was Activision. It was Activision event today, and they see the arrows, and they're in the park, and they see the table set up kind of randomly. So Activision's having some event, and some these random companies, you see them set up in the Simpsons land and not and Potter sometimes, and just kind of hanging around. And usually these things are happening after the park's closing, but you see them setting up like the bars and everything right in the middle of the park. It's like wow, I didn't realize how many events at least recently this Universal's been having because I mean every single time,
Yeah.
sign with these arrows, the lower lot, enter here for this event, enter at the buy Transformers. I'm like, oh wow, look at all these events popping up, and So yeah, this new design will really help with that because then you don't have to place everything right in the middle of the park, and you
Correct.
just you just go to Monsters and that's your event, and everyone else go have fun.
Yeah.
Type because Universal, at least here, if Hollywood has all these events, then I feel like I'm sure Orlando has like triple the amount of events currently.
They do, and the positioning by the convention center actually makes this an even more attractive offer for you know, corporations looking to have their events set up and conventioners looking to have a space for their convention and so forth. I mean, this it all makes that process a little bit more little bit easier to undergo. And more attractive for those corporations, like I said. So Disney has been doing this for a long, long time. Actually, there was the not only are Universal and Disney in competition for guests, but they're also very much in competition for these corporate events because, like I said, I mean they can they bring in the money. In fact, on Jim Hill and Len Testa's podcast, The Disney Dish, they actually talked about they went over a multi-episode series going over not the Vacation Kingdom but the Convention Kingdom that Michael Eisner had an idea for and was built out to a large degree. That's actually one of the reasons why the boardwalk is built the way it is, as it kind of buttresses up to Epcot in the way it does, the Coronado Springs, and so forth. Right, all of these kind of resorts that are positioned the way they are around Epcot. That was with the intent to build this convention kingdom. And they still actually they do these corporate events on quite the regular. In fact, one of the biggest losses that was recently incurred at Disney's Hollywood Studios in the form of the Great Movie Ride wasn't so much a loss for guests, but for people who actually the executive team that actually puts on these corporate events for these corporations. It was actually a big loss for them because one of the areas that they loved to set up corporate events in was the what is it? The Munchkin Land room, right? In the Great Movie Ride back in the day. They would have corporate events there all the time. And now, obviously, that can't actually take place. Nobody wants to see a space that's just projections in the same way that you can, eat and dine and have your event inside this kind of audio animatronics facility like used to exist. One of the reasons why Harmonious was actually dumped the way it was, even after spending something like $100 million on that thing. I mean, who knows how much money they actually lost from that. But one of the reasons why it was unceremoniously, let's say, replaced the way it was at this year's D23 Expo was because of the convention business and the corporate event business that was impacted by Harmonious and how they did not have the festival pavilion that they were going to have, right? And how the show really couldn't be seen very well by the various angles around World Showcase Lagoon. That really did affect their convention business, which, by the way, those corporate events, they sell those years years ahead of the event itself. So certain corporate parties were sold, right, with the understanding that Epcot would be finished, that Harmonious would be this amazing show, that you could see it no matter what vantage point there actually was, that there even if that was an issue, they were going to have this festival pavilion structure that people can actually see it on, right? And that didn't happen almost at all. And a lot of these
not coming back.
A lot of these corporate parties were like, hey, you know what? You either fix this or we'll take our business elsewhere. and what they mean by elsewhere, they're saying Universal. Now, Universal, because they only have 2 parks and so forth, and they can't be as, let's say, transparent in this whole arrangement or as aggressive as Disney has been, previously. but I think that will start to change a little bit with Epic Universe coming on board here. And the great thing is they're building this this kind of setup like they're building this into the park itself, and you're not having to kind of make adjustments after the park is actually built. Close off whole sections, right? You can isolate to individual lands and so forth. So I think it's a great thing. I think this is obviously a trend that we will see continue in the themed entertainment industry, and I think Universal is actually going about it the right way. The other thing about this setup, as you can see on the screen right now, is the central spine from the entrance plaza in kind of the bottom left quadrant of the photo to the hotel, which is about the end. So it's about your upper right. That central spine there. There is a possibility, because of how segmented these themed entertainment lands are, there is a possibility where you could have regular park goers actually walk in to this central spine and have people who have actually paid a theme park ticket actually have access to the themed lands around this kind of corridor, right? And actually have access to the ride shows and attractions beyond them. This would allow you to have basically a pseudo city walk right in the middle of this theme park that can actually have presentations for stuff like fireworks and water shows. That's a really, really cool thing right here. And it's something that we've not seen anybody else attempt. The closest that we've seen to the possibility of this actually taking place, at least with the entertainment thing. Do you remember back in the day when, before Disney Springs Wizard, they were going to have like a World of Color type show?
Yeah, that drone show that I was pretty hyped up about. I was like, we should put that in more places.
Yes, they did actually go with the drone show, but even before then, they were going to have a water show in kind of the vein of World of Color. Even before then, this was before Disney Springs, mind you, and they were going with a couple of themes that just didn't pan out. But here, Epic Universe, they can actually do that, and that is very, very attractive for sure.
Yeah, especially that. Yeah, because that last little helix or circle, the amphitheater. Yeah, that's a nice view. It's everything's super wide here. So
Right. So
this should be a good fireworks viewing in just about every spot. Looks like. Wow.
to break that down a little bit further, from what I understand, that hotel right there and how the water feature is incorporated, that hotel is being set up to be a projection surface. Like,
Yeah. I mean, look, it looks perfect. Look, it's curved just with the same curvature as there.
right.
And yeah, that's be nice. And then on the rooftop bar with the viewing everything fireworks, that's a good idea.
It
And
is. It is.
good idea. Almost.
And
You
fireworks
think
and stuff like that too.
you think we
OG55
could
says here.
borrow from this? Maybe for a third park for California.
Yeah, proximity to the convention center for Epic Universe could be an interesting test for the Disneyland Resort, possibly putting a third park on the Toy Story lot across the Anaheim Convention Center. You're absolutely correct. I mean, we've talked about how having a park slightly removed from your resort hub, let's say, is definitely an interesting test, one that we have not quite seen, right? I mean, Walt Disney World, everything's kind of spread out, but to have a theme park down the road, right? A lot of people are talking about transportation issues and so forth, right? So this is going to be a big test in that regard, especially for Disneyland Resort, which we know the Strawberry Field, or the Toy Story lot, as it's going to be known today, is slightly removed from Disneyland Resort centric, right? The Disney California Adventure and Disneyland Park specifically. And so if you can kind of connect these things, that would be great. Epic Universe definitely provides a roadmap in which that could be done if it is successful. However, the added kind of dynamic that OG55 was astute to point out was, well, it's not only one that's slightly removed, but it's also one that kind of butts up right against a convention center. And literally, similar to Epic Universe, if at Toy Story Lot, if you look across Harbor, literally you're looking at the entrance to the convention center itself, the Anaheim Convention Center. So this is a big test, and I think this is one of the reasons why Disney's going to be looking at this project very, very closely, because if this is very successful in the way that I think NBC Universal and Comcast executives are hyping this up to be, this will definitely be something to clone on Disney's end out in Anaheim.
And curious about that because I was watching Fresh Makes videos and he was talking about the whole topic, but I was just curious because the new, the elections passed, right? So they got the new city council, and I know the mayor's doesn't seem pro Disney according to what I heard from Fresh Make, but the two council members of the three that got replaced, he said, seem to be Disney backed. Do you think that bodes well for not even just Disneyland Florida, but just any Disneyland relations with Anaheim?
So I have to actually look into this a little bit more. Obviously, like you said, Wizard, the elections have passed, and it looks like it's a left in its wake has left a city council that is more favorable to Disney, and for the reasons why
So
you brought up
that's
there,
good.
it is. But I have to see whether or not the mayor's influence on all of this, not just political influence, there will be some, I'm sure, but also if she I believe it's she I don't want to misgender here. I believe she has to approve anything the city council actually passes. I don't know that for a fact. I am thinking that is the case, but I actually had to talk to somebody who let's just say is a lot more he's a lot more in tune with the kind of local political structure as it relates to Anaheim, especially, than I am. So I had to come back on that. Look, the city council being more pro Disney, always a good thing,
Definitely.
no question. But the mayor holds a lot of sway, so I have to figure out that dynamic and see if that all works out. Look, she is saying right now that she's going to be, more resident friendly or whatever. That they're not going to have big corporations, run the city, kind of thing. Like, she's saying all the
All right,
things.
let's have Disney pay her a couple $100 million real quick.
There's a difference, though, in what politicians say and what they actually do, right? And I had to look at her history as well to see whether or not she's really on the up and up or if she's just blowing hot air. So the jury's still out on it. It's a little bit too early to say. I think, though, and this speaks to some larger issues that are taking place inside the Walt Disney Company in general. I think that Disneyland Forward is on hold because of some of their distinct cash flow issues that they're having right now. Again, Disney Plus is not so much the economic driver that I think as it was perceived to be back in 2020 and so forth. The market's changed regarding that. Also, too, that brings us another point. I think we should bring it up right now. What's going on in animation? This is another thing that might impact the parks.
Yes. Oh, yes, the animation.
Right. The Wrap also had an interesting article. This is from Yahoo, but, it's a pre-post. Okay, it's the article, I can assure you.
It's from the Wrap. It even says the Wrap.
It says the Wrap, right? But but they had another article by Scott Mendelson, which is very interesting. I just realized that right now.
Oh, wow, he's on Twitter.
Yeah, if you know Scott, he's an interesting character. Anyway, how Disney Animation lost the box office crown to Universal for 3 straight years with no turnaround in sight. So I just want to go ahead and read you this a couple of portions here. Disney, the once undisputed king of animated movies, has lost the box office race to arch rival Universal Pictures for the last 3 years running, and there's no sign of a magical turnaround on the horizon. From Pixar's Onward, which opened to a disappointing $39 million in March 2020, to Walt Disney Animation's Strange World, which barely cracked $25 million in its first 12 days of domestic release. By the way, it's probably going to be 60 million, 70 million, if that, which is a tremendous box office failure. Disney's theatrical released animated films have grossed just over $1 billion worldwide. You might be thinking, oh, that's pretty good. Well, this is where it gets interesting. Meanwhile, in that same period,
almost did.
oh yes, oh yeah, we're getting there. Meanwhile, in that same period, with the same burdens of COVID and on much lower production budgets, those two things are key here. Universal's combined theatrical output from Illumination and DreamWorks Animation have earned $2.06 billion worldwide from a series of animated hits like Trolls World Tour, The Croods: A New Age, Spirit Untamed, The Boss Baby Family Business, Sing 2, The Bad Guys, and The Minions: The Rise of Gru. It goes into Jeff Shell's comments about this. I'll hold those off for right now. But again, Universal, over the last 3 years, with their animated studio divisions, have doubled the revenue output of Disney in those same 3 years. Same economic conditions. It's a 1-to-1 on that regard, and with lower production budgets. Wizard, go ahead.
Yeah, but also those things were just the box office gross, right? They didn't go to Peacock afterwards. They went on Apple, iTunes, and digital for $20 to buy, or sorry, $20 to rent, and they're constantly in like the top 5. Definitely on when they debuted, always like number 1. That's a whole bunch of additional revenue that certainly pushed the Minions over. I'm sure $1 billion if you added that all in, and added I don't know how much money to the rest of those, and probably pushed it to maybe $2.5 billion to 2.0 billion, because instead of going right to like Disney Plus, they get that additional revenue with people buying it on Apple TV or wherever they buy it, digital.
Correct. You are exactly right, Wizard. This is actually something that David Zaslav and others in the industry have kind of talked about, saying, hey, it doesn't make sense to go all in on streaming as of right now because the revenue stream just isn't there. So previously, before the events of the pandy, okay? Mm-hmm. Before, how it worked was you had let's say you had a $150 million big budget blockbuster release, right? And you would release that in various windows over the year, let's say the summer, right? And so for the summer, you'd have that movie actually come out, and it would stay in that theater for 3 to 5 months, easily, right? Mm-hmm. And then when it actually made its way off of theaters, you would then sell the streaming rights either directly to the consumer, right, where they could buy a digital copy of it, or you would sell it straight from the theaters to a place like Netflix or what has been emerging, Amazon Prime, for a period of time, right? And then you would actually sell the physical copies of it later on down the line, and then you would take that film and put it out to linear television, right? You would sell that maybe to a premium brand like HBO and so forth, have it play on there, and then you would have its TV run cycle. But you would sell that film multiple times, right, within that film's lifespan. Well, now that's all changed post-pandy, and honestly, not for the better. And Universal is still kind of on that train, in which this is what Wizard was talking about, where they have an animated release go into theaters, right? Mm-hmm. And it's exclusive there. And then, I believe for Universal's animated streaming rights, they don't just go over to Peacock, they go over to Netflix, right? And so they receive a licensing fee or royalty fee from Netflix to have exclusive rights to stream that film. And then it makes its way into physical, and then it makes it on its way down the line there. Linear television, and I believe Peacock is shortly thereafter after the physical rights go up for sale. Anyway, you're selling that multiple times before you're putting it on your streaming platform. And Universal, even though Peacock, it's not a huge platform, it has had ad revenue built in from day one. So they're still making some money to offset the costs of Peacock in a way that Disney Plus isn't, right? What Disney's doing is they're taking a $200 million film, some cases $250 million, like we saw with Lightyear, for example, and they're putting that out 30 days after it's released onto a buffet style streaming platform that is Disney Plus. So for $8.99 a month, you can get access to a $250 million film 30 days after it makes its way into the box office. That is insane. Okay, that doesn't make any fiscal sense whatsoever. And why are they doing it? They're doing it for two reasons. One, to build subscribers, right? And to also retain subscribers. So with streaming, it's not just about getting people on board, it's about convincing them to stay in order to avoid churn. So that's why they're going all in. And this is why Chapek, among many other reasons, was fired. Because he couldn't solve that equation. And I think it's the obvious one that is hurting Disney's, previously very robust revenue streams. Let's be honest here. I mean, the having an animated film that is $200 million, it doesn't make sense to budget these films as high as that high, right? If you're going to send them off to your streaming platform 30 days after. It makes absolutely no sense. I mean, it'd be like having, I don't know, Kobe beef, right? The very high, highly sought after a Japanese premium beef product put on an $8.99 buffet line. It doesn't make any sense. You're not going to be making money. You're going to be losing money. And yes, you're going to have customers coming in, but you're not going to be making anything. It doesn't make any sense. And I have more to say about this, but Wizard, am I on track on that, or am I off base?
Yeah, definitely doesn't make too much sense money wise. It keeps the churn low. Now I notice. I'm sure you and OG have the stats, but Premier Access that went away. But I'm curious, if they want to do that, no, 30 days, whatever, and put it on Disney Plus, but on Premier Access, but maybe not $30, but maybe $10 or $15. Yeah,
Sure.
would that be a viable, at least in between solution? Do you think?
I think it would. I think that's a nice middle ground. I think the big problem right now with this kind of strategy is the release windows. You can't have a $200 million film go to streaming 30 days out. You're cutting off the legs before you even get a chance to run. You really want to extend that out and keep these films in theaters as long as possible, at least to provide the perception that, oh, well, I better see this, because if I don't see this in theaters, it might be sometime before I actually get to see this film on the streaming platform that I'm on. Wizard, are you still there? Hello? Am I gone? Is he gone? Are we gone? Chat, let me know. Are we still on? Still good here? Okay, I don't know. Wizard's frozen. Okay. Now I'm on, but am I by myself? That's the question. I don't know. Chat, let me know. Am I on? Or is Wizard off? Or am I off? What's going on here? We still on here? Okay. Casual, you can hear me. That's fantastic. Who is you, though? Is it Wizard, or is it me? You on Wizard. Okay. All right. So I guess Casual's talking about me. Okay. Just want to go ahead and make sure. Don't worry. I'll go ahead. I'll take over the reins. It is completely fine. Here's how, yeah, this whole churn thing doesn't quite work out. What I was getting at was you can't have a $200 million film, right, go on streaming 30 days after it comes out in theaters. This is insane. There's no way to make your money back. What they have to do is really extend these windows out. And I think, honestly, they should go for probably 3 months at least, right? Just extend them out a little bit. Just, there's no rush to put them on there, right? There's, just lengthen that out. Mm-hmm. And if, after those 30 days, maybe you have a premium or a Premier Access model in which you can pay for access to these films, right, on your Disney Plus subscription, maybe like $15, like you said, Wizard $20, somewhere around there. And then after that, maybe like 60, 90 days from that, maybe then it's something that's just on the platform in the ongoing content repository that is streaming. Maybe then that's kind of how you do that kind of thing. But I think, Wizard, you brought up a good point, and it's kind of been something I've been saying for a while now. If the expectation for families, again, these are family films, right? Mm-hmm. If the expectation for families is that they wrangle up all the kids, right, and they pay a per seat, per screening access to your movie, or they could wait the 30 days and have all access to it. I mean, there's going to be a lot of families who opt for the latter, right? They're not going to opt to, they're not going to opt to, pay the ticket costs and pay which are highly inflated right now.
The snacks.
Pay the snacks cost. Yeah,
it's like a ticket to Disneyland. I bet $200 or something. Yeah.
I mean, it gets up there. I mean, you add in the popcorn, you have a couple of kiddos running around. Maybe you bring the hubby with you too. You're talking about $100 easy.
If you're with other families in there and someone else with the kids screaming, then the kids probably don't care, but the parents who just paid all that money are probably like, why did I pay all this money? And then someone's screaming down the hallway when I could just watch this at home in 1 month, because my kids won't care, because they won't even know a month flew by. They'll be like, hey, guess what? It's on now.
Or you can wait the 30 days, wrangle up the kiddos, and go to somebody else's house that has a Disney Plus subscription, and you can see that film.
Yeah.
Right? So, again, you know what this reminds me of, Wizard? This reminds me of what happened with boxing. Boxing in the United States used to be a big, big deal. You know what killed it?
Pay-per-view.
That's right.
That's why I don't like watching. I don't want to pay for it. I don't even like boxing, but I still don't want to pay for it.
Right. So, yeah, okay. That's fine. But boxing, it used to be a thing in the United States. We used to look at it like we do football. I mean, it was a big, big deal. Muhammad Ali, those were Frazier and so forth. We used to look at these people as icons, and now, very obscure outside of very notable figures in that arena. Pay-per-view is what kind of killed, and I think, streaming, I think, is really kind of killing the monetary possibilities of these films in a way that I think will hurt not just the theatrical industry, the theatrical exhibitors and so forth. I mean, they're going to be hurt no matter what, but I think it's going to hurt these films because there's no way you're going to bankroll $200 million productions like this.
You want to know something interesting? 2019, Disney had 9 $1 billion films. That was insane.
Yeah.
And now they don't have any except maybe Avatar, but crazy how times change. Just in $1 billion films in general, there's just Jurassic World, Top Gun Maverick, and from last year, Spider-Man. But that's it. And Disney had 9 of them alone in 2019.
They were the box office king, undisputed. And they had been building on that for quite some time. What happened in 2018, it's remarkable, and
In fact, they
I
had a
don't.
$2 billion film, Endgame. Oh, what a great film.
Oh yeah,
2 billion.
even with
And
the increase in ticket prices, I just don't see how they get anywhere back. I don't see how they get back there anytime soon. Even with these higher prices and so forth, it's
I feel
just
like
it's a
even
different market.
yeah, yeah, just even like movies in general. Like I feel like everything's a lot of like front load, right? They
Yeah,
all go see the first couple weekends and then it drops off. Like Black Panther, right? I liked the film. I saw it a couple times, but you see it a couple times and then after the first couple weeks and it just drops off. That's what all these movies do. No one has any real legs anymore, and I think because everyone's so accustomed since the lockdowns, they're like, oh, it'll just these things are coming to streaming really fast. So
yeah.
I'll see it once because Black Panther is big on. They got to see it on the big screen. But second time I'll just wait in January and it comes on Disney Plus. We'll wait.
I I agree with you, Wizard. I think a big part of the legs being and look, the legs being these things being front loaded the way they are, that's been happening for the industry for quite some time. But it really has become pronounced in the last couple of years, especially.
Mhm.
And I think a big part of that is streaming, Wizard, to your point. The one film that had legs, the one film that kind of rode it out, the one film that kind of had people still coming back was Maverick. And it was
Mhm.
because Tom Cruise was like, no, you're not putting this on streaming. We're getting a old school theatrical debut and an old school theatrical window in which you're not going to undercut this film in any way. And that gamble actually paid off. I think of
Plus,
films.
it was a good movie.
Oh, it's good. Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's a good movie. And I think people will come out for quality product. I think they still will, right?
Okay.
But you do that product, whether it be quality or not, any favors whatsoever when you take it out of those theatrical. You take it out of theatrical so quickly, and you reduce the windows to the extent you do. I think
And
this is a
to
wrong move.
this the theater's fault, as I've been telling you, and OG. I don't know if he's still here, but I still think because everyone just rushes to the premium screens, and then it's hard to. We have multiple movies coming out. It's hard to book premium screens. The theater and those studios have so many screens to book them. The theaters should have taken the time and told. If I was AMC or a smart theater chain, I would I'd say, all right, these lockdowns aren't ending in 2 weeks. Let me go ahead and just convert my theater experience and just make them all premium screens because that's what's selling the most anyway. And they can still do it now. They can shut off one theater at a time if they have to. Make it a premium theater. If you see that's what's selling, and you see these empty standard ones, why don't you keep the standard ones? It makes no sense, and it makes it harder for the studio people because there's fewer screens to put your theater or movie on because everyone wants the premium screens and the
Right.
premium experience. Oh, especially if you're gonna charge $26 for the ticket. I'd want to see it in IMAX for that price,
Yeah.
not just some tiny standard screen. When someone's you can go to Costco and make your own home theater system that's probably just as good as one of the standard theater ones. Try no one goes those anymore. They don't do them. Why don't they do them, Dre? Why don't they do them, Vash?
It's really bizarre, and this is an industry which has historically accounted for some of these changes in the marketplace and so forth. I remember back in like the 70s, right? Before Jaws was released, they used to have the Cineplex, where it used to have the one screen, right? And then these box office hits became so regular that they had to introduce the multiplex, right, and increase the screens that they had available in order to account for as many box office releases as we saw during the 70s, 80s, and so forth, right? Right now, this was going back to an article from Box Office Pro in 2018. This is going towards a premium large format screen. So this is what Wizard was talking about in terms of the your IMAXs, your Dolby Cinemas, and so forth, right? I guess as recently as 2018, that number was about 3,202 screens. Now I'm sure it has increased since then,
No.
but that really does kind of put in perspective. how lacking in premium large format screens that we actually have. And I've actually forwarded an idea of like, okay, well, if you have a multiplex, right, and it has, some of these can have 12, 16, 20 screens, right? Okay, do this. Convert those or rearrange. This can be a big investment at a time when these places are lacking capital, right? But take your multiplex and have 4 or 8 premium large format screens, right? The big auditoriums that really these filmmakers like Christopher Nolan and James Cameron really demand that viewers actually view their films in. Provide those, and then have like maybe 4 or 8 smaller screens, right, for those small exhibitions. So, right, because right now you go to a multiplex, you'll be lucky to find 1 or 2 PLF screens, and that's just that's just not with with streaming becoming the way it is and so forth. Like Wizard was saying, people want to go to the theater for an experience they cannot replicate at home. They want to have something that's totally mind-bogglingly amazing. Well, the only way you can actually do that is with a PLF screen. These smaller auditoriums just aren't cutting it anymore. So I think it's really on exhibitors right now to change their offerings to include more PLF screens. And really honestly, I mean, those are the ones that generate more revenue anyway. I mean, I was looking at prices in the LA area for Avatar 2, The Way of Water, and for 3D on a PLF screen and so forth. I mean, you're talking like $26 a showing. That's a real deal right there. So if you maybe consolidate some of these smaller auditoriums that a lot of these multiplexes have, provide for maybe 1, 2, 3, or 4, maybe even more PLF screens, and then have a smaller footprint when it comes to smaller auditoriums, I think that will definitely increase demand and provide the capacity for these films that we're going to be seeing 2023 and beyond.
Yeah, it's funny because they all complain like, "Oh, no one's coming to see the movie anymore," but they're not doing anything to like enhance the experience. Like, you can't complain and then not try to entice people to come. Like, and then they don't clean it, and it's terrible, terrible. People kicking your seat. I mean, yeah, it's hard to avoid. Well, actually, that's not hard to avoid. That only time where I had the person kicking my seat was in a theater that didn't have stadium seating. Hello, what theaters have stadium seating in it nowadays? Like, I remember when that was first introduced. I was like, "Ooh, this is cool." Now everyone has it. It's rarity to find non-stadium seating, and they didn't have it. I'm like, "Wow, that's crazy. What the heck?" Improve your experience, theater owners. Nicole Kidman is on a premium format screen, probably Dolby Cinema screen on every time you see her on AMC. So even AMC knows. They know. Yet they still, although AMC is pretty good, I must say. AMC provides me a great experience, especially their newer ones. Wow, at least here in the LA area.
Yeah,
Woo! They have some
it's
great theaters out here.
it's depressing. It's depressing when you're in a theater that was built probably in the 90s and you're seeing Nicole Kidman in a state-of-the-art theater and her theater looks way better than yours and you're going like, what the hell am I doing here? That has definitely got to change. Unfortunately, it's really tough right now, and I kind of lay it out in kind of the simplified fashion, overly simplified fashion, right? There's a lot of complicating factors to this, right? There's lease agreements with land holdings or malls and so forth. There's a lack of capital investment during a very economic tumultuous time and so forth. I get it; it's not easy, right? But I think that is a big that's a big thing holding, I think, these theaters back, is just not having the PLF screens available in order to showcase these marquee products. I mean, who wants to see Maverick on a little screen? I don't think anybody wants to do that. They want to see it on the biggest screen they can. I think that goes with Christopher Nolan's films. I think that's going to go for Avatar. Like, they want to see it the way that the filmmaker intended it to be seen. And the only way you do that is if you provide a PLF screen in which to do that. And as we've seen, woefully underrepresented in the theatrical marketplace. But I wanted to go ahead and pivot, Wizard, if we could.
Pivot.
Pivot a little bit. What do you? I mean, Disney being beaten out here to the tune of double in the way they are, and it's not like Universal. Between DreamWorks and Illumination, they spent more money on their films. No, they actually spent less. It's kind of what we're seeing in the theme park space, right? Where Universal Creative, they spend a lot less than Disney does for their projects, and lo and behold, sometimes they're maybe even more successful. So you can argue, right? But in here, we're actually seeing this. I mean, I know for a fact that Minions: The Rise of Gru was made with a production budget of, I think it was like $80 million or so, right? And yet it grossed almost $1 billion at the box office. You compare that to Disney, which I believe at that time had Lightyear, and that was budgeted for, I think it was like $250 million, and it didn't even make close to its even production budget. I think it was 236 or so. I think it made at the box office. And that, that doesn't overcome that 50-50 theatrical split that they have domestically. That doesn't cover your distribution costs or your ad revenue costs, right? That's a big loss right here. So this article goes on to say here, let's say, come on. The contrast in box office performance has been stark. Disney's Encanto, $256 million, earned one-third less in late 2021, early 2022 than Universal's Sing 2, $470 million, while Disney Pixar's Lightyear, $226 million, sorry, overestimated that a little bit, eventually earned less than both of Universal's animated films from this spring and summer. Illumination's Minions: The Rise of Gru at $937 million, and DreamWorks Animation's The Bad Guys $250 million. And Disney cannot blame pandemic conditions for the deficit, since every studio faced the same issues with families reluctant to return to theaters and hybrid theatrical streaming releases. And you can see right there. I mean, that is it's a big difference right here.
It's because Disney was too woke. I was half joking, but really, they're putting so many messages in their films, and Minions didn't have a message, but at least I had a message, but it was hilarious. Ooh, wait, I saw that 2 or 3 times. Lightyear had a message, and it wasn't fun. But Sing 2, I didn't see it, but I'm sure it's fun. It's just creatures singing. You know what? Yeah, you can have all the messages you want, but don't take the fun out of it. You're taking the fun out of it. You gotta have fun. It's an anime, especially if you're a child. Child's gonna see this, right? They're not gonna even listen to the message. They're gonna be like, "Oh, why isn't Buzz?" They're probably thinking, "Why isn't Buzz Lightyear in his suit flying around?" With with Woody. But because they're not gonna go online and be like, "Oh wow, okay, so it's him that inspired the action figure." And they want one. They're like, "I want Buzz Lightyear."
It's like a super meta concept, right?
Yeah, like you gotta take. Can't take the fun out of it, or else then you're not gonna make any money, as you see.
I agree, Wizard. I agree. Look, if you look at this chart right here and you look at this decline, I mean, obviously a lot of people are going to say it's pandemic related, and I do agree. Pandemic had a severe effect on this, but I don't think it's necessarily just because of pandemic related, market conditions and forces, right? Because clearly Universal's making more money. I think it's a combination of that plus streaming plus
Mm.
these films really not generating the demand or being in tune with the audiences that they once catered to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the loss of. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. Just say it, Wizard.
You
Yes, I'm
said
gonna
it.
go. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. As we would say in O255, balls to the wall.
Boom,
Right.
boom, balls to the wall.
I'm gonna say it. John Lasseter. Right. The other thing you can track with this
John
graph
Lasseter.
is the loss of Lasseter. And look, a lot of people have opinions about, why he was ousted the way he was, and whether those were, the reasons were justified and so forth. I'm not here to argue with that. I'm just saying that his loss right here, I think, has contributed greatly towards the lack of Disney's output when it comes to quality. I mean, it's just, I think there is kind of this, they're out of tune with their audience. A Wizard. You talk about the woke, right?
Yeah,
But
no, well,
really, it's this kind of very overly pervasive kind of California Hollywood mindset, right? Really creeping into these films that used to be kind of relegated to kind of the art house films, right?
mhm.
But we've been seeing some of these concepts and ideas kind of make their way into what used to be Disney's kind of four quadrant films. And Disney used to understand, hey, look,
Films and rides and film.
right? And look, Disney used to understand, hey, if we're going to give these films a four quadrant budget, which I think 250 million qualifies for sure, right? Then we have to also make this a mass appeal four quadrant film. And unfortunately, I don't think Disney's doing that. And I think that is also contributing to this kind of discrepancy between Universal and Disney right now. Universal's films, like you were saying, Wizard, they're fun. They're kind of turn your brain off, kind of fun films that you can take the whole family to and that people kind of trust. Whereas Disney films, I've heard from a number of people that say, I don't really want to take my kids to that. Or I don't know if I want them exposed to that. Or, any number of things that kind of prevent these families from taking their little ones to these films. Some of it is also due to the quality of the films themselves. They're just not that good. They're not that enticing. OG55, higher up in the chat, OG55 was like, hey, Super Mario Brothers movie's going to make $1 bajillion. It looks great. When have we said that about a Disney film?
Yeah, that's true.
It's been a
I
long
think the
time.
last one was like Frozen too, which
Yeah,
made it really
maybe, if that. I'm just saying we just don't see that kind of enthusiasm from the general
and
audiences
even
that we've been.
here, casual even said Super looks fantastic, and I'm not really a Mario fan at all.
I got to be honest, I'm not really either. I played Super Nintendo and
I honestly,
the
I just
NES
played
back.
one game, like Super Mario Brothers on the DS. That was it. But
Yeah,
my goodness, when I saw how much Shay looked like the game, I was like, well, that's great. That's insane.
I
Oh,
know. I remember playing the original Mario Brothers video game on the NES, and I remember playing the Super Nintendo equivalent of whatever that was. But I hadn't interacted with Mario since then. That was back when those games were originally released. Right, that's way back. And yet I'm looking at this phone, I'm going, that looks like a fun film. That looks like something I want to go to. That looks like something that's really intriguing and interesting. I'm not even that big of a Mario Brothers fan, like casual, right? But it looks so fun. It's like, wow, this looks really, really,
and it
this looks
looks
really, really great.
gorgeous. Wow. I don't know
Oh,
what the budget on that is, but it looks
oh,
gorgeous.
I can tell you right now, Wizard, it's cheaper than whatever Disney's charging. And that's really the issue. The other issue I think that's facing Disney right now is there anything really distinguishing Pixar and Disney animation right now that you can think of,
You're
Wizard?
probably like the 10th person I've heard say that. Because they seem the same. But especially
No,
because not doing any sequels or any name brands like Toy Story, like that's Pixar. No, but like other than Yeah, that you like. I couldn't tell you if Strange World was either Pixar or Disney. I know it's Disney, but you know what I'm saying. Like, they even look the same a little bit. I mean, Luca, I must say, looks a little different. That was Pixar, right?
Yeah, well, that's the you see that's the whole crux of the issue there, Wizard. The fact that you have to ask really kind of highlights what we're talking about here. Yes, Luca was Pixar. But a lot of people no, a lot of people can't distinguish these films. Like they just look the same. They have the same themes. They go into the same areas when it comes to, whether
They
they're
might as
fantasy
well.
films or whatever, science fiction
Oh,
films.
oh, yeah, no, they must. They might as well combine the divisions.
I have heard that I mean, I've not heard internally that's what Disney's considering, but I've heard from industry experts, or personalities that it's like, why don't you do that? You can lower overhead, you can lower and consolidate your operating costs and so forth if you combine these studios that really don't have any brand identity at the moment. And I can't really argue with that right now. I'm just not seeing the creative output that we enjoyed in the the aughts and the 20 teens. I'm just not seeing it. And like Scott Mendelson alluded to in his article, it's like there's nothing really on the horizon that makes me believe that they're going to be able to turn this around. So why not consider that? I mean, it's an interesting issue. Two things, I think three things got to change. One is you have to do something about these release windows, and the revenue generation for these films. You can't just put these films out all you can eat, right? We see this from the park side, by the way. They're getting away from annual pass holders, right? Because they're getting a kind of a bulk rate for all their visits per year,
The
right?
unfavorables.
The unfavorables, right? So they're moving towards we're going to prioritize day guests who buy tickets and so forth. We're gonna prioritize the bottles over the cow, let's say, for our sales, right? And that's great. Why are you doing the opposite on your studio side? Doesn't make any sense. That needs to be addressed. I think the second thing is budgets. Obviously, they're just a little bit too high. You have to really kind of contain those costs. I remember when it was a big deal when Tangled was $200 million because of how long it was actually in development. Right, that was a huge thing. Now that's like a regular occurrence. That can't be the case. You have to consolidate those. And I think the third thing, you have to go back to creating films that people actually want to see. Jennifer Lee,
Yeah.
Pete Docter. Jennifer Lee, the Pete Docter, the two heads of those respective divisions, Disney Animation and Pixar, they're not up to the task. We got to switch those guys out. I'm sorry, their time has come. We can't keep being beat by Universal. Can't not happen. You got to address that. So all things combined, I think that's a recipe for success. The question is whether or not the Disney company is going to do that right now, or whether or not Bob Iger might leave those decisions to the next CEO. It's going to be interesting. This is a story to watch, and it does impact the theme park divisions as well. Remember, Universal for a long time. I remember that Universal, the one big hole that it had to its theme park operation was the kid-friendly attractions, right? The kid-friendly IPs, right? Well, now that is rapidly changing, and that hole is rapidly being filled. And
Yeah, we got Minions, Pets, Dragon.
and on the flip side, with Disney themselves, right? If you have a lack of good IP coming out, what do you theme your theme park concepts around? Especially when you're in the IP wars, as it were, right? This affects theme parks as well. And I'm saying right now, if it can happen with a dominant industry like Disney has so dominated for the last, quarter of a century at least, when it comes to their animated product, I'm telling you, it can happen to their theme park product as well.
Especially if they take 80 years to build something.
Yeah.
Like, keep in
Indeed.
mind, they got a B cinema score. That's the worst ever.
B cinema score, which like Wizard said, every single animated film up to that point. This is going back as far as Beauty and the Beast, so that includes the
30
Chicken
years
Littles. That
ago.
includes the Home on the Ranges, Brother Bears, right? All of those films that aren't looked on as fondly as some of the Renaissance era. All of those were A and above, A minus, A plus, right? This was a B, and
And like, man, that wasn't even a B plus. It was a B.
it was a B. That
You
that
might
is the kiss of death.
movies like the Black Phone got a B plus. And that's a horror movie.
Attack of the Clones got an A. I mean, nobody gets a B. It's kind of like Wizard. You'll like this. If you go around the LA area, right? Everybody has
Mhm.
to have their placards for their restaurants on their windows, right? And usually it's an A, right?
Yeah.
And everybody puts
You
that A out
always
there.
see a B. If you see a B, you turn around and leave.
Right, right. Everybody has an A, so that when that B pops up, it's like, whoa, that's a B? Oh, they gave everybody an A. I'm out of here, right? That's what happens. And so that's what happened here. It's a B. It's like, oh my gosh, like this is terrible. I'm not gonna waste my money on this. And go somewhere else.
That's yeah. That was oh god. Let's hope Elemental is not like that. Uh, ooh, that was tragic. That
Yeah,
was really
casual. With the no
and
good new IP, use an old one to inspire something new. Here's the problem with that. I don't want. I don't have trust or faith in these creative executive teams, whether it be Pixar, Disney, Lucasfilm. Don't stop touching established product. stop ruining great franchises. I agree that you can use it to inspire something new for sure. But a lot of these companies and studios with this very competitive space that is entertainment content right now, they'll usually with these bigger libraries and so forth, they'll go back and they'll bring out some IP from their library in order to what is it? Use the built-in audience of that work and kind of shortcut success out of that. That's kind of why we're seeing, a lot of people are talking about, well, why aren't there any new original films? Why is everything a remake or a sequel or whatever? One of the reasons is it's a very competitive landscape, like I was saying before. You're having every single, even technology company, they have a studio under their belt, right? And from so many different, we've not seen content generation from so many different distinct places before. And so what a lot of these established studios will do in order to kind of cut through the noise, right, and to have a film actually be birthed into existence that is immediately successful is they'll usually take a previous product or IP or so forth that has had a built-in audience and then reimagined around that. So casual, I don't, I see what you're saying here, but after seeing so many sequels and remakes and so many franchises, let's say, negatively affected by this practice, I'm pleading with studios right now to hold off on taking a prior film product and reimagining it for a modern age because it usually doesn't turn out well. Oh, Casual comes in here with another comment. I was talking about how they're doing the new attraction names. Adventureland Treehouse inspired by Swiss Family Robinson. Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, this kind of, what do you think, Wizard? This half in, half out, right? It's a Journey of Water inspired by Moana, or Adventureland Treehouse inspired by Swiss Family Robinson. What is going on there? What is your take on all this?
you know, whatchamacallit, I don't know, I think it's a reason for them to half-ass the thing. Like, all right, let's let's put an IP without putting an IP. Let's just do a little bit of this, and then just put some elements of something. It's probably a little cheaper, and then and call it inspired by. That's so silly to me. I don't know, it's kind of weird. I mean, come on. Even Splash Mountain's inspired by Tiana. That's crazy. Uh,
You know what it sounds like to me, casual. With like Journey of Water inspired by Moana, or is that the name of it? That's the name of it, right? I I don't even know. Look, the Moana walk through water thing that they're building in Epcot, right? To me, what that sounds like is, from what I understand, some of the design language for Epcot, I guess 2.0 is if you want to call it that. Definitely Future World 2.0 comes from some other projects and other concepts that they had for Epcot going back a couple of decades. And they've just kind of been reworked in order to fit in the kind of a more modern context, right? With maybe some differences in design language, obviously, but in very much keeping with this kind of notion that, well, Future World's a little bit outdated. How do we prevent that outdated design language to continue? It's kind of like the Tomorrowland problem, right? Well, we incorporate nature and naturalistic aspects to it, right? And I think Journey of Water or whatever it's called is a reflection of that. But I think the inspired by Moana tag, I think that's a mandate by Chapek, let's say, and some others in that kind of corporate executive C-suite. Like, hey, we have to make this more Disney. We have to make this more, we have to put in the IP, and that's where this kind of inspired by Moana tag comes from. It's this IP foisted, quite literally, on this project. Because I do think they were always going to go with something like that, but now it's a Moana tag. Swiss Family Robinson, I think, is kind of the reverse. I think it's this kind of battle between the executive leadership and Imagineering, and maybe them wanting to do a kind of Swiss Family Robinson rebirth, but because executives maybe don't feel it's quite the the barn burner that Swiss Family was back in the 60s, maybe it's okay, maybe we do the inspired tag on it. We have a little bit of a point of separation here, right? And that will allow us to not only do a Swiss Family Robinson inspired treehouse, but also include references that we necessarily couldn't if we were just going straight Swiss Family Robinson. So I think that's kind of what's going on there. But it's interesting, this kind of half in, half out. Well, we want IP, but we don't want IP. I think it's a very interesting thing, and it's kind
it's
of a
also
disturbing trend.
interesting. It's interesting, and maybe you can answer this for me, Dre.
Sure.
How is a restaurant, looks like a decent sized or smallish or medium sized restaurant, Woody's Roundup Barbecue, whatever.
Yeah.
They said it was going to open by then, 2022. Now, not even like early, but spring, is that their favorite time period? Spring 2023? That's another thing that's pushed back to spring 2085. Like, it's not even that big. And the Toy Story Land opened 4 years ago. I understand it wasn't in construction of the land, but how is a restaurant, like, which one opened first? Tron. It becomes a race. Tron or Woody's? How is this pot? Why does and I would say it's a Disney thing. I think it's a Disney World thing because again, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railroad was probably built and opened before Woody's is, and that's insane. It's a restaurant.
Yeah. So if I had to speculate, we talked about
the supply
pushing
chain with the monkeys.
Well, I think that has something to do with it, but I think also too, I think it's Disney attempting to push out capital expenditures out towards multiple quarters, right? Stretch it out, right? So you don't have all that expense all at once. Also too, the labor shortages are not only just affecting like frontline cast members and so forth, but I have heard that they're also affecting the construction industry as well, in which the Florida market, Disney not only has to compete with Universal when it comes to labor for their frontline cast members, but they also have to compete with them for construction workers. And I have heard that's also had an impact on these projects, not just Toy Story, the Woody Roundup barbecue, but also Tron and some other ones. So I think all of that kind of has an impact on this. Look, it's kind of embarrassing. Right? It's like this is a very kind of this was always meant to be kind of a value oriented restaurant. It wasn't supposed to be very
Yeah,
elaborate in terms of its
it's
theme or
not
design
thinking
and so
Space
forth.
22. I mean, this is crazy.
So it's like, why is this one taking a long time? And maybe that's why. Maybe it's just been a low priority when looking at the kind of selection of things that still need to become online and so forth, right? It's like this was always kind of meant as a value option, not quite the revenue generator, right? That some of these other establishments are focus on. Let's say we focus on Victoria and Albert's before the Toy Story Woody Roundup, right? That also probably played a factor. It's not awesome that this has been delayed once again to spring. But it really comes as no surprise. You say that this is like a favorite time period for them. In some ways, that's true. I had heard for like Disneyland, for example, a long time friend and source for OG55 once said that, oh yeah, I could have predicted that Star Wars Galaxy's Edge wasn't necessarily going to get the big attendance numbers that leadership was expecting because it had opened in the summer. If it had opened in the spring, that would have been a better timeline for those things. So, quite literally, sometimes that works out that way. Also, too, it's around the 100th anniversary of the company and so forth. And I think they're going to have a new marketing push for new attractions and so forth. I think this is going to be one of those, right?
Come
So
on,
it's
guys,
all kind of
check out this new restaurant for the 100th anniversary that should have been open maybe 4 years ago.
exactly right. Well, it should
Check
have
out this new,
honestly, it should have been part of Toy Story Land's opening offerings, right?
yeah.
One thing
I
that was
mean,
heavily criticized for this land was the lack of eateries or food and dining options. So it probably should have been part of the opening of that land.
let me even
But
go.
but
Guys, check out the new Tron coaster that should have been ready a long time ago. But here is a new 100th anniversary offering. Wow, what a nice gift.
but now, Wizard, now that they've pushed this back and are opening it in the springtime, now they can tout as part of their 100th anniversary of the company. You can go to our Disney Hollywood Studios theme park and enjoy a barbecue experience underneath huge plastic monkeys. So I think it all
Well,
works
I'm
out
gonna
in the
book
end,
a
right?
plane ticket for that right now.
Yeah, exactly. That's gonna book the vacation packages. There are a number of things going on right now. It's unfortunate that things like this are delayed. As we kind of get out of the Chapek era and go into the Josh Giamaro era, I hope that we maybe look at these things with a as critical of an eye as we did in the Chapek era. Now that Daddy Josh is in town, but we'll see.
I hope so. I saw he's in the park today, or yeah, today. Uh,
Oh, was he? Oh, great.
with Iger, him and Iger together were together again in the park.
Really, they were.
Yeah, some
Oh,
it was exploring attractions there in the parks, and they posted.
oh.
Yeah,
Which
they had a talking
what
kiss.
was it? Disneyland?
Disneyland, right by the tree.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay,
But
so Iger making more moves, I think.
making more moves, and I don't know. Maybe he's testing out the reservation system. Maybe he's seeing how it works. Who knows? Uh,
Yeah. So you were
uh,
saying by the tree? Are you saying like
yeah.
in the hub?
Oh, yeah, I'm the hub. He was like, right. Actually, he was standing on top of the Main Street track, the V tracks, the trolley tracks, talking to a guest. It looks like, and I think I don't know. Yeah, people were just kind of wandering around, and he's when they're both wearing those nice sweaters again. I must say, gosh, I gotta go shop where they shop. Yeah, gotta give me those $500 sweaters, man. Those look pretty nice. But uh,
I'm trying to see. I'm trying to see if I can find pictures of this
Let's see.
because I
Oh,
think
I
that positioning
have.
is interesting because that's right next to a guest relations booth if that's the case, which is they've fielded a lot of complaints from their new product offerings. I can assure you of that.
Oh, good. So, do they actually listen to those, or do they just like? Oh, here it is. Here's the. Oh, just kidding. It was by Let me. I'll just share the screen. Where'd it
Sure, please.
go? Oh wait, is it gonna allow me to? Oh, I can't. Yeah. How come before it didn't do that? Ooh,
Do you want
okay.
me to end
So,
my? Yeah, there you
oh,
go.
no, here you go. So
Yeah,
he said Iger
here's
was in here. Right? He's Iger's probably in this crowd. Yeah. So he's over actually out by the tree. He's by the the restaurant. Was this a plaza?
yeah,
The
it's the
plaza.
Plaza Inn, which
Yeah.
is right next to a guest relations booth.
Oh wow, yeah. So maybe maybe they're fielding complaints, seeing what complaints they got today.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's by
oh yeah,
a
because gas
main
stations
one.
is like right there. Ah, yeah. Okay, I know where it is.
I
Yeah.
think it's a little over to the side. Anyway, it's by the wait times board that's in there now.
Yeah.
Um, that's it.
Interesting.
That's where a lot of complaints have been fielded, and that's where a lot of operational concerns are taken to. So that's a very interesting. The location is very distinct to me. Might be reading too much into it. I'm not sure, but that is interesting. Also, too, a minor kind of side story here, but one that I think is also relevant. If you can share my screen one more time, Wizard.
Yes.
Not
That's it.
now. Thank you.
Yeah. Woo.
So the entrance
Oh
to
my gosh.
Light
Let,
Cycle
let
Run was revealed, right?
let me tell
But
you, Six Flags was trending because of this.
oh, really? Why were they? Why was that the case?
Insane. Yeah, it was Six Flags was trending because everyone's. Um, well, there are two factions of people. The factions of people are like, oh my gosh, Enterprise, what is this, Six Flags Park? Because, advertisement or sponsorships. Then there's other faction people that says sponsorships have been happening at Disney since the beginning of time, which is true. Uh, Stop making your Six Flags jokes. And then they just got into a whole bunch of like arguments. It was hilarious. But that's yeah, it was
Disney
not
glimpses tell me you've never been to a Disney park without telling me that you've been to a Disney park, right?
a
I understand this is going to have a lot of people, kind of like up in arms or whatever. Here's the thing. These theme park installations have become so expensive, especially for the Walt Disney Company in particular, that they have to offset these costs. And I would rather them go towards a kind of a small sponsorship route, right? Than not getting an attraction entirely or having that attraction, let's say, watered down or value imagineered because I couldn't secure a sponsorship. Like, for
I mean,
example,
Autopia has Honda for years now, so I don't know what the problem is.
and before that, didn't they have?
Like Volvo or something? Was it Honda or Volvo? Oh, they have Honda now, but
Was
I
it
thought it was
Chevy? Oh, I
I
gotta
know Test
see.
Track. Test Track has Chevy.
Yeah, Tesla has Chevy now, but they used to have
Yeah,
GM, which
yeah, it's have GM.
GM is just as
It's like,
yeah,
yeah, it's
that's
basically the same thing.
it's the same thing, right? Yeah. So, but
The
here's the
other
thing:
way.
if GM, right? Let's say GM sponsored Rocket Rods, it would still be with us today. Because that was one of the main reasons why the track was not banked for the Rocket Rods. And because of the issues that came along with not banking the track, it's one of the biggest contributing factors as to why that attraction isn't with us right now. So when I see sponsorships, I don't go, "Oh, I can't believe it! Oh, Disney, come on! You can't pay this huge capital expenditure cost on your own. You got to get some outside company, whatever, blah blah blah." No. This is a way to offset costs, and this is a way that we could, in fact, be getting better attractions. Like during the Paul Presser era, I can just tell you right now, folks, we weren't going to get much unless those sponsorships were part of the process. Now, some sponsorships were kind of intrusive. Others, I think they went well together. Like Dole, for example, and on Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room, like that went
Mm,
together very very well, and that was kind of
yeah.
a you know
Dole
a way,
Whip.
yeah, a way to offset some of the maintenance costs for that attraction, and because of that partnership, I believe that's where the Dole Whip kind of came from, right there, and it's been a good thing for the parks overall, right? I've seen sponsorships of like FedEx sponsoring Space Mountain and so forth. I think like
I like
Ziploc did
the I
Splash
like
Mountain,
Yeah, Ziploc is fashion, but I also like I say yes in Disney World. Ziploc is doing Jungle Cruise. I
Jungle
think that's
Cruise, right?
because
One of the
because
famous one of the famous sponsorships was McDonald's and Dinosaur. And I guess
mhm.
McDonald's was actually going to sponsor Splash Mountain for a time during its construction, but it never actually came to fruition. But they sponsored Dinosaur, and that's why we have the piping above the load station in that attraction. It's like red, white, and yellow, and that stands for ketchup, mayonnaise, and mustard, and whatever.
Oh,
Look, sometimes you're gonna need sponsorships, and especially right now
well,
with supply chain issues the way they are, with inflation the way it is, with recessionary issues being the way capital expenditures, it's a lot easier as fans to to tell a big corporation like Disney, hey, you got to spend more on the parks. It's a lot different operations, a lot different for the bottom line. Go ahead, Wizard. Sorry.
uh, well, I was gonna say, luckily for you guys, I'm sponsoring Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railways. So when you see Theme Park Wizard's name in there,
Oh,
just
there
know
you go.
I made that. This is exclusive breaking news. I'm just revealing it right now. It'll be on the blogs post tomorrow morning. So when you
Wow.
see me
I
on
did
there,
not I didn't know that, Wizard. That was a
I made
savvy
it happen.
move. A
I
savvy
made
move.
it happen. I saved Toontown. I said, if I do this, you have to reinvigorate Toontown, or else I'm not gonna give you the money. And they said, sure. No, just kidding. If I were a sponsor attraction, I'd sponsor Splash Mountain, and I'd make it in my closet. Tiana gets her own awesome ride as
Oh,
part
I
of the
like that.
sponsorship. See, that'd be a nice sponsorship. But seriously, when I see this wait time sign, I think I don't think anything about the sponsorship. I'm like, oh boy, can it finally open? That's my first thought. Wow, and then I think, wow, look at that progress. And I'm like, thank you, Enterprise, because if you're making this open soon, then thank you, Enterprise.
That's a good thing. They also Disney also put out surveys actually asking guests which brands are you most familiar with, and they had like a bunch of them listed. And I think Enterprise was one of them. Hershey's was another. Whatever.
Hershey's, oh gosh, please, Hershey's sponsor something. I want free kids Hershey's chocolate.
Right.
That's
Okay.
right.
I don't think that's coming, Wizard, but it
I
was just an example,
want
right?
it. I want it.
Also, they have Hershey Park as well, so that's another deal. The like, but the what that said to me was they're gonna get, I think, deeper into the sponsorship game. I think this is coming around again. And like all things, it's cyclical, right? I mean, when there's a downturn in terms of the company's financials or in terms of the company's internal happenings, right? Sometimes this stuff comes about, and I think that's what we're seeing here.
You know who also did a survey? Speaking of surveys,
Sure.
I didn't see it, but Sean was telling me because he came and visited. And when I met them at the park after work, he said they went and saw the water world. They were doing a whole bunch of people were taking surveys, asking, and the survey said if people liked Water World or not. Thought it was
Uh
very
oh.
interesting.
Uh oh.
I was like,
Uh
oh,
oh. That means they're considering
Ask-
replacement. That's what
yeah,
that means there.
asking people if you like Water World. Like, kind of interesting. I'm like,
I
oh,
hope. Look, I understand Waterworld's a little bit long in the tooth, right? I understand it's been there for a while, and obviously nobody's seen the film.
yeah.
But
I
I
think
still
it's great
think
every time. Like the plane, like wow, that's so cool.
I
And the
still
guy
think
on
it's a
fire.
yeah, I still think it's a banger attraction. I still think it's just a hit show. It's something that Islands of Adventure didn't really have. I mean, they tried to duplicate it with Sinbad, but that didn't really work out. And there were talks about it going to the East Coast for that reason. I think Japan still has it or whatever, and it's still a
Mhm.
huge success
And
over there.
Beijing has its own Waterworld land.
Oh yeah, they do, don't they? Wow. So look, I think it's still a viable theme park
Mm.
property, and I would hate to see it replaced. Hey, maybe they're thinking about enhancing it. Could be, but
Maybe like a modification because it is this has at least as far as I've been watching, it's been like the same ish show. So yeah, if they up like a fantastic type of thing, or I'm like, all right, but I would
it's
be a
one
little
of the
sad
last.
if they demolish it.
To me, it's one of the last stage shows. And
Mm,
Universal Studios Hollywood used to be known for its stage shows as well as much as
mm,
it was known for the tram back in the '90s. I mean, we used to have the Wild West Stunt Show. We used to have
mm.
the multi theater effects show. Waterworld obviously was in that space, but even before then, it was I think like Miami Vice or something or somewhere or another. Um, uh, you know,
And then
they used to
Fear
be known for their
Factor.
stage shows. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fear Factor used to have what is it? They used to have like a Spider-Man stunt
Yeah.
show. Creature from Black Lagoon. That's not so great, but animal actors, right? And because we're on the precipice of losing animal actors and the effects stage show for
Which I
Fast and
first
Furious.
I saw for the first time last week, by the way, ever.
Oh,
I was like,
really?
yeah, it's like,
How was
ever.
it?
It wasn't that great.
Okay. Well, I
Although the
I
coolest thing was the girl on fire, and I was like, "That's cool." And
right.
she went for 20 seconds. I was like, "Wow!" But the rest of it, I was like, "Show me something really cool," and it wasn't what I thought they were gonna like. They're leading up. It seemed like they're leading up to showing me something really cool, but then that was the thing. I was like, "Oh, that was the stunt." I thought it was like something better.
Yeah, the problem is the venue. The venue is a little bit small. They don't
Yeah, it
they
is
don't
pretty
quite
small.
have the audience participation that they used to before with the previous versions of the effects stage show. If you remember, there used to be a kind of a three auditorium setup where people would come in, sit for the first show, then they would move to
Yeah,
the adjacent auditorium, sit for the second show, and so forth. And that used to present a
that
lot of
was
opportunities for
massive.
a massive thing. It used to present a lot of opportunities for audience participation, and so forth, and really some bigger effects that they could showcase. And unfortunately, when Transformers was actually installed, that went away. But I still think that with for a park as small as Universal Studios Hollywood is, I think having a show on the scale of Waterworld really extends your day. It really is a big part of your day, and it's a big reason why
Mhm.
people go there. Is to see that live entertainment that they can't really see anywhere else. So, hopefully we see Universal's kind of or Universal Studios Hollywood's kind of stage show mindset or philosophy continue in some way, but we'll see. I mean, they're definitely becoming a more of a attraction based enterprise, which is good. It's great. I love to see it, but they are landlocked and they have to make tough decisions. We'll see if
Mhm.
Waterworld or something like it continues.
'Cause I
But
remember
I
that. Oh yeah, no, so I remember that survey before. I think it was 2020 that I got, and it asked if I how would I feel if the studio tour was a upcharge VIP experience only. I was like, interesting.
yeah, very interesting. But okay, I think we've just about covered pretty much everything.
Oh, good.
That's that's most relevant right now, most timely, right? Obviously, we'll have future shows to continue discussions like this one that you're hearing tonight, and we'll include the I don't know the upcoming news that comes out, and I'm sure we'll have discussions on that wizard for sure. Yeah, robust discussions, right? Let's see. I'll give it to you.
Robust
Discussions, right? As Christine Wastelands McCarthy would say. But on that note, my name is Dre, or at VashSky on Twitter. It's right down there, just like it's spelled. Let me go ahead and I'll close my window here for you guys so you can see it a little bit better. Right there, boom. Right there at VashSky. Go ahead and type that in onto the Twitter. Should pop up for, as Christine Wastelands McCarthy would say, for all the
robust
discussion right there. If you want to go ahead and see me, well, I do make appearances on the channel you're watching right now, Theme Park Wizard. Thank you so much, sir, for having me on. But I also frequent Orange Grove 55 here on YouTube.
Subscribe.
That's right. Subscribe to both Wizard and Orange Grove 55 if you can. Where at Orange Grove we have shows like Orange Nerd with my buddy OG, which is awesome and fantastic. Citrus Corner with our co-host Disney Family Man, or George. Right, he is a phenomenal presence on there. We also have some appearances by Casual, as you're seeing in the chat right there on OG55.
That's right.
Which is fantastic. And I'm there as well at a little show called Freshly Squeezed, your source for juicy news and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. And because it's a universal discussion, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't play Wizard's favorite drop here. And Theme Park Casual is correct.
You smash that like button and have a phantasmic day.
Please do. Thank you.